Part 122. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1212. In the darkness of nowhere. The war broke out. The Dark One, the Stopper, has felt the terrifying fluctuations coming from the forbidden world. Master has moved. The great God and the one on the dark throne are also heading to the forbidden world. It's time for us to take action. He spoke, with a burning fighting spirit in his eyes, and said, those last fires of life should be leveled. The Dark One also nodded and said, the final battle will completely wipe out all life in this world. After the four major civilizations in time and space, this forbidden life civilization should also die. Now in the forbidden world, Master and the one on the dark throne have taken action. Let's go and destroy reincarnation. The Dark One spoke indifferently and said, in this life, reincarnation appears again, and reincarnation is not broken. The life of this world is like the grass that grows again every year when the spring breeze blows. Dark Vault, a very thorough study of forbidden civilizations. They also know that reincarnation is one of the biggest back ups left by that person. It must be destroyed. Okay, destroy reincarnation. He spoke, and his eyes suddenly looked towards the forbidden world. The supreme power forced all the secrets out, leaving nothing to hide. At this moment, yellow smoke billowed over the forbidden world. It was the breath of reincarnation, and it had enveloped the entire forbidden world. Wrong. The Dark One was slightly startled and said, in reincarnation, there is nothing supreme. They noticed something. Supreme, who was born in reincarnation, may not be that easy to deal with. They pondered. Reincarnation was the avenue discovered by that person back then, and the Lord of Reincarnation who was taught about reincarnation in the past was even more stunning for a while. He followed that person who faced the darkness, even though he was only the Emperor of Heaven, but in the end he took the supreme action. Just killed him. Now, the supreme road appears in reincarnation. How about all the supreme Taoist friends in the sky of darkness, following my two brothers and sisters to eliminate reincarnation? The Dark One looked back lightly, looking at the dark door deep in the darkness. Within the gate of darkness is the vault of darkness. As soon as the Dark One said these words, in the vast dark door, on the dead and silent dark stars, a series of terrifying eyes suddenly burst out. That is, a supreme person. The final battle, the annihilation of the forbidden civilization. Fight for the original law of the universe and reincarnation will be broken. For a time, in the dark dome, the supreme sound surged up and down, and a supremely powerful person traveled through the space and was reflected in the forbidden world. Many supreme beings are about to reincarnate. Reincarnation is broken. There is no room for injustice here. A supreme voice sounded, and the supreme power filled the sky, almost crushing the years. And the dark place. Junior brother, you can achieve silent Taoism with peace of mind. He said lightly to the silent person and said, after everything is wiped out, we will go find the 3 souls and 7 souls of the great God Tiao and take care of him. Then, He and Darker took one step forward. They and many supremes had arrived in front of the billowing yellow smoke. In the yellow smoke, there seems to be a bridge of Nehi, crossing the 2 worlds of reality and mystery. There is the deafening sound of the forgotten river, and the phantom of the 10 palaces of hell appears. Those who are silent and still should step onto the Nehi bridge first. On the Nehi bridge, a middle-aged man had also appeared. He stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes black and white, as if he had been waiting for a long, long time. The war is raging, and even cultivators who have never followed the desolate Sky Alliance army to the grey mist continent cannot stay aloof. In a cave, an old man climbed out of the coffin and roared. You bastards in the dark, I will fight with you. On a green peak, a young man was practicing. When he saw the black mist rolling in, and there were dark creatures in it. He was startled, and then he held his sword and said, "Master wife, goodbye." In a river, several carps turned into dragons and rose into the sky to fight against the black mist. This is a great conflict, and no one can stay out of it, and it will determine the life and death of the entire taboo world. The path of parasitism, the path of creation, the path of grey fog, these routes that were once discussed and even regarded as a way to survive have lost their meaning at this moment. If you don't want to become a slave of darkness, there is only one way: war. From reincarnation to ants, the whole world is fighting. The Grey Mist continent is the center of the Xuanhuan battlefield. The martial arts collapsed, the sound of the piano shook the world, the sword light was like flames, and one sword pressed down on the sky. Even many utensils in the kitchen, such as spoons, chopsticks, etc., all glowed with a world-shattering color. The battle became fierce, but the presence of a group of people in the small courtyard abruptly leveled the gap between the current combat power and the dark world. There is even a counterattack. Huoling's Li Tianxian palace shrouded several dark emperors. Mu Jianing gave the hairpin to Mu Wanqing, and together with Wu Xiaoqan, the sun and moon were in the sky. The lunar sun formed a huge vortex, and the whale swallowed and refined the black mist. The three rebels of the 9 tribes, Wu Jianghe, Chang Sunbumi, and Ji Wudan, charged into the enemy group, causing eggless tragedies from time to time, with awe-inspiring killing intent. Emperor Yang Chu, a veteran of a generation, is now the king of heaven, with his silver hair dancing wildly and never taking a step back. To be executed. Finally, I saw that the forces of the Dark World were actually unable to attack the Forbidden World. On the Great Wall of the Dark World, the Dark War Emperor took one step forward and killed Lin Zhuhan. He has seen that although Lin Zhuhan is only the King of Heaven and has not yet become the Great Emperor, he is approaching the Emperor of Heaven with the help of the Heavenly Masters Tao and the power of creation. But, at this moment, in the Forbidden World, on the sacred soil, there suddenly was a figure stepping into the battlefield. He also only had one arm, just a shadow and a thought. The thoughts left behind by Emperor Zhan Tian. I will finish my fruit. The shadow of Emperor Zhan Tian appeared in front of Lin Zhuhan and said softly. Then, he greeted the Dark Emperor of War as an after-image. No one can stop the darkness. At this moment, another Dark Emperor, Grey Emperor, also moved. He joined the battlefield and continued to kill Long Zixuan and others. These people are the real main force in the battle. Wow, little Huiwai, your wings are getting stronger now, aren't they? At this time, a big black dog appeared, as strong as a mountain, with eyes like a giant lake, staring at the Grey Emperor, and every hair was like a long black needle. Give you the opportunity to be reborn in darkness. The Grey Emperor took a step forward, and behind him, the shadow of a terrifying giant beast actually evolved. It was a huge grey lion with shocking arrogance. This is the true form of the Grey Emperor. He was once a little lion. Wow, you were invaded by a wisp of black mist in the past. The master felt sorry for you and gave you a wisp of white mist, which allowed you to touch the avenue of grey mist. Now you have turned to the black mist. I will bite you to death. Dehe was angry and fought with the Dark Emperor. At this moment, it had nothing to hide, and all kinds of terrifying magical powers were blooming, and it actually fought back and forth with the Grey Emperor. The two Dark Emperors have been blocked. Long Zixuan, Lin Zhuhan, Nanfan, and others, carrying 10 spirits and 10 medicines, like sharp blades, quickly entered the enemy camp and approached the Great Wall of Darkness. Kill. Break this dark city. They can't stop them. The desolate Sky Alliance army was invigorated. But, right now, from that dark world, a white figure suddenly appeared. Wearing a white dress, she stood out so eye-catchingly in the black world, rising above the billowing black mist, as if she were an independent and peerless beauty. She turned her back to everyone, but at this moment she suddenly looked back. At this moment, from her dark eyes, thousands of things were suddenly evolving. The terrifying chess piece of darkness is attacking Zhang Li and actually disintegrating Zhang Li's chess piece. A jade hand patted lightly, filled with unparalleled martial arts energy, almost forcing Long Xuanhuan to retreat 100 miles. A black divine sword passed through the sky, and the sword pressed down on the 9 continents. Dugu Yuking's sword intention was about to collapse. The music of the south wind suddenly stopped. Lin Zhujian is facing a black talisman, which is difficult to break through. Qing Chen was shrouded in black Zen light, and his eyes were closed. A black forest sea appeared in front of Lu Rang. The giant trees were so tall that even his green grass shadows couldn't kill him. The one who came from the small courtyard, Gongya, was the only one who was not affected. She evolved into a shocking teapot, poured out her divine power, and continuously killed the creatures of the black mist. The rest of the people were suppressed almost instantly. This is not because their own Tao is not strong enough, but because of pure strength. In the dark world, that white shadow has a realm beyond them. Supreme, she is the supreme level. Long Xuanhuan spoke in a deep voice. The end of 10,000 ways, the blackened end of 10,000 ways, this is even just a shadow of her, her true body has not appeared. The supreme master of all things. Everyone is unwilling. But, right now, in the gate of 10,000 Daos that appeared before, another figure suddenly appeared on the ladder of wisdom. It was a petite girl who looked to be no more than 8 or 9 years old. She was walking up the ladder of wisdom with a box of books on her back. Her pure eyes glanced at the dark world. At this moment, in her eyes, there were actually thousands of blooms. The sound of the piano sounded and the sword energy emerged. The power of Xuanhuan's small martial arts fists is not weaker than that of the shadow in the dark world. Xuanhuan has also become the end of 10,000 paths. For a moment, Long Xuanhuan and others were shocked. Sister Xuanhuan has actually become supreme. Did she get the same fate as the end of 10,000 Daos in the gate of 10,000 Daos? The end of 10,000 paths is no longer the only one. The world was shocked. The end of 10,000 roads is a legend. It is said that he stood at the end of 10,000 roads and once fought into the darkness alone. Now, a little girl has walked out of the gate of 10,000 Daos and reached the same realm as the one who once was the end of 10,000 Daos. Sister, you and I will try our best to kill you, so that my elder brother will be sad when he sees you. Zinning whispered, and then carrying a box of books on her back, she stepped onto the great wall of darkness to confront the dark shadow of Yungzi's previous life. At this moment, thousands of ways are surging and fighting with each other. For a time, it was hard to decide the outcome. As for Long Xuanhuan and others, after the pressure was released, they immediately attacked the city gate. Woof, charge. The big black dog suddenly bit off a mouthful of dog hair, transformed into hundreds of dogs, besieged the Grey Emperor, and then killed himself in front of the city gate. Come with me, I will lead you to break this world. When it raised its big claws, it actually evolved into the claws of a true dragon, directly shattering the vast Great Wall. The army enters the dark world. Dehei, can Xuanhuan suppress that phantom? Entering the dark world, Nanfan asked with concern, looking at Xuanhuan who was fighting. The rest of the people are also paying attention. The big black dog said. Essentially speaking, there is no difference in ability between the two of them, it's just that their moods are different. Smelting all the ways, except for the great way of the Supreme Being, they cannot evolve. All the ways in the world can evolve. At the end of all paths, one step forward is ignorance. If you become ignorant, you will be able to understand all things, and even other supreme paths can evolve and copy. However, Yungzi's previous life and the current life's peace of mind gave up the opportunity to become ignorant. Therefore, they could not evolve other supreme avenues like the dancing gods, but all the paths below the supreme were omnipotent. Hearing this, Xuanhuan said doubtfully. State of mind. The big black dog nodded and said. The end of 10,000 paths in the previous life has cultivated the state of mind of no return, but facing the dam, we can move forward indomitably, and the peace of mind is the state of unchanging state of mind. Even the power behind the dam cannot transform it into a dark creature. When Wu Dade heard this, he was shocked and said. So, aren't they invincible? The big black dog shook its head and said. Of course not. No return just means that you will not retreat, it does not mean that you will not be killed, destroyed, and alienated. The same is true for Wu Bian, this state of mind just makes Xianning not turn into a dark creature after death, but directly and completely disappear. The embankment represents great terror, great weirdness, and great ominousness. Being able to rely on one state of mind to be immune to certain aspects of the embankment is extremely rare. The big black dog couldn't help but sigh. Hearing this, everyone understood. Facing the dike, it seems that strength is not the most important thing. In front of the embankment, there are piles of bones of the Supreme Being. Looking at the embankment, one can make the Supreme Taoist heart collapse and stop moving forward. The original source will be alienated, let alone come close. But the state of mind. Is there a state of mind that can resist all the power of the dike? Become truly invincible? At this time, Qing Chen suddenly asked. The eyes of the big black dog suddenly became extremely complicated, and its mood was actually a little depressed, and he said. A state of mind that can resist all the power of the dam? A state of invincibility. In the past, many people thought that there was, but it was all a scam, the great scam of the ages, we have all been deceived. The dam wants to destroy you. In the face of absolute power, any state of mind is useless, the state of mind just allows you to choose the way to die. So what if I have no home, I get close to the dike, but I am alienated and die, so what if I don't change? If I look at the dike from a distance, I will completely disappear. If I don't turn into a dark creature, it will be destroyed. Hearing this, Nanfeng, Xuanhuan and others felt their hearts tremble, feeling an unprecedented heaviness. Nothing has changed, but the way to die is different. It seems that I have such a ridiculous choice. Even the master, who was extremely strong and robbed people from the dam, died 9 times. It murmured. Hearing this, Xuanhuan and others were shocked again. Master, once robbed people from the dam? Don't look at it. Sister Tao, Feng Mu, Brother Long and others, everything in the courtyard, including you, was snatched back by the master Jufa Diba. The big black dog smiled sadly. At this moment, it was like an old man who felt that his end was approaching. He no longer had anything to hide and said. In those years, there was eternal darkness, the whole world was in silence, the fairy land, the holy land, etc. were all wiped out. In front of the dam, mountains of supreme corpses were piled up. In the vast universe, there is only one master left. He has cut down the dams alone for 9 times, and has no regrets in 9 deaths. He has snatched back corpses one by one, and that's how we are today. Xuanhuan and others were shocked to the extreme. Everything in the world was extinguished, all living beings perished, and only the master was left. He cut down the dams alone and snatched people from the dams, and he never regretted it. Only then did the forbidden time and space come back to life, and the small courtyard and the small mountain village were restored. Exist. When I followed my master to block the dam and kill people, you were still unconscious corpses, even Sister Tao and Feng Mu could only estimate the scales and feathers of that year from the years, and this emperor has witnessed history. The big black dog said proudly. 1 person and 1 dog, blocking the embankment, killing and robbing people, master, you are too strong. Xuanhuan and others couldn't help but sigh. Damn dog, why did you change your gender today and suddenly tell us so much? Wu Date suddenly spoke doubtfully. This damn dog usually has a very strict mouth. Even in the small courtyard, he was beaten several times by Fenmu and Brother Long, but he didn't say so many things. The big black dog muttered. Because, you are going to be finished anyway. After saying that, it suddenly looked towards Xuanhuan, who was confronting the phantom at the end of the world in the dark world. Unchanging mood, no way, I have to sacrifice my self-esteem. Woof. Then, it squatted down in front of everyone, and unleashed its earth-shattering magical power, causing the stench to permeate the entire battlefield. I'll kill the dog, but you don't have martial ethics. Too much. Don't say hello in advance. Long Xuanhuan and others were shocked and fled in a hurry. And while the big black dog was using his magical powers, it was barking at Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan, who was confronting the phantom at the end of the world, paused slightly, as if he had received some message. Wow, follow this emperor to bring peace to the dark world. After the big black dog finished pulling, he roared angrily. Long Xuanhuan, Duguyuking, and others had already taken action. At this moment, this dark world is collapsing, and countless dark creatures are being killed. You and I will disappear together. The phantom of the Emperor Xuantian burst out with the power of immortals, saints, and gods, and the Dark Emperor Xuantian exploded at the same time, and perished together. Damn thing! On the other side, the Grey Emperor, who had transformed into the Dark Emperor, was bitten and scarred by a group of clones of the big black dog. He was almost hunted. The entire dark world is about to be leveled by the Forbidden World. But, right now, above the battlefield, two figures suddenly appeared. One of them has a dancing knife on his waist and a skeleton necklace around his neck. He is obviously a master of dancing in the dark. But the other person is a young man. He is personable and elegant. He always seems to have a smile on his lips. He is exactly the same as Li Fan. Dark Li Fan. You can take action. Jumping to the master's mouth, he was ready to take action. However, Dark Li Fan stopped him and said, "What are you going to do?" The way of the dancing master. They are the key to the betrayal. Let them betray your other incarnation, and if you want them to betray, lure them with the benefits of eternal life, deceive them with the evil of their teachers, confuse them with their dissatisfaction, and eventually commit suicide. A situation of killing each other. If they throw themselves into the darkness, your demonic thoughts will kill a lot of them. Dark Li Fan said. Do you know why you are only third in the world? Master Tiao frowned and said, what do you mean? Because you are stupid. Dark Li Fan said lightly. Believe it or not, you can't stop being tempted, confused. Master Tiao said, then what do you mean? The only one who can make them betray another body, is me. Dark Li Fan smiled slightly. And at this moment, in the dark land of chaos, in the dark world behind, battles raged, and even the supreme aura appeared. However, deep in this world, there was a girl in a white dress, walking step by step. She saw the steps of time ahead, leading to the deeper past. Yongzi spoke. She took advantage of the battle at the rear to sneak into this place, preparing to directly start the ancient road to reverse the years. Is that Yongzi? However, at this time, a middle-aged man in white robe suddenly appeared on the steps. He looked at Yongzi, his eyes as warm as the spring breeze, and said softly, "It's useless. Tell you a story, would you like to hear it? Update early on Saturday while no one is around." Well, it's a long chapter of more than 5,000 words. Today, I went to play with this chapter. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xian. Chapter 1213. A long time ago, when the world was first created, the middle-aged man in white robe sat on the steps of the years. He spoke slowly and slowly, telling the story he wanted to tell. A tribe was born from the wild land. Learn to fly from birds, use mountains and rivers to train your muscles and bones, watch the sun and moon and realize your supernatural powers. The tribe keeps growing. Following his words, Yongzi seemed to see the reflection of time and space, which was the upstream of time and the first sign of life in the rolling universe. In the vast universe, that world is like a piece of dust, but above the dust is the paradise of living beings. The mountains and rivers are primitive, the land is wild, there are countless birds and beasts, and there are many powerful ancient tribes. The weak human race spread all over the earth, feeding on the blood of all beings. It was an ancient history of struggle. Within the human race, great sages were born, who opened up the road for the human race, and gradually became stronger. In a tribe, a group of teenagers are growing up vigorously. They follow their fathers to hunt ferocious beasts and learn the art of fighting. One of the teenagers shines brilliantly and becomes the new star of the tribe. The young man was so beautiful that he aroused the fear of other tribes. The tribe was blood-bathed, and the young man escaped under the protection of his tribe. He has lived a wandering life ever since. But fortunately, with his vengeful fury and extraordinary talent, he stayed anonymous in a certain sect on the earth, learned a lot, and finally returned to the wasteland, killed all his enemies, found the remnants of the former tribe, and reconstructed tribe. He led his tribe to fight continuously, and after countless years, he finally unified the pure land of life and became an invincible emperor. However, when the entire pure land of life was extremely prosperous, natural disasters came and catastrophes occurred frequently. Human beings on the floating earth were struggling in death. The young man has grown up to be a great emperor. He went against the natural disaster and saw the great strangeness and great ominousness in the universe. After tens of thousands of years of fighting, and growing up, the great emperor reached an unprecedented level. He became the strongest supreme being in all realms, and he was surrounded by a team of masters who were also supreme. He led the most powerful people in the world to follow the ancient path of the universe and continuously trace the source of the black disaster and the ancestral land of the natural disaster. The journey is so long that one can forget time and the way back. The words of the Silent One are neither fast nor slow, calm and gentle, but without emotion. On such a long road, each other's support becomes the motivation to go on. What you can't understand is that dozens of the most powerful people in the world are all supreme, walking in the vast and empty universe. In the first 10,000 years, they are full of fighting spirit. In the 10,000 years, they are still ambitious. In the 1,000,000 years, they no longer know why they insist on it. For the first 1,000,000 years, they no longer know whether they are conquering the universe or being conquered by the universe. If they were alone, they might have gone crazy long ago. Even the supreme beings couldn't bear the loneliness. At that moment, they deeply realized that it was not they who were protecting the world behind them, but the world behind them who was supporting them. For them, it is not the humble creatures that need their protection, but it is them who need those insignificant true feelings to warm their hearts. However, when they first saw the terrifying tide of darkness coming, the people who had once determined to bulldoze the darkness, still changed. The Lonely One smiled. Now, above the dark world created by 10,000 roads end. The entire dark world was almost about to be bulldozed. Nanfan, Longxixuan, Lurang, Duguyuking, Qing Chen, Zhongli, Wu Dade, Linjuzhan, Gongya and others showed their invincibility. Behind, Huo Ling'er, Mu Jianing and others also led people to bulldoze the grey mist continent, killing them fiercely. The only thing missing is the shadow at the end of 10,000 paths. Longxixuan and others all looked towards Xianning. At this moment, the battle between Xining and Wandao ending has reached a fever pitch. Both parties have entered the gate of 10,000 daos, and have been smelted by the fire of 10,000 daos. For them, All avenues from the supreme to the lower are easily accessible and can be used at will, only between brothers and sisters. Sister, I don't want to fight anymore, I want to kill you. Xuanhuan suddenly spoke, she raised her hand, and a ray of light suddenly fell on Gong Ya. At this moment, Gong Ya's chi suddenly exploded, the avenue roared, the heaven and earth shook, and the light of creation appeared on her body. Gong Ya was brought into the realm of enlightenment by Xuanhuan. At this moment, Gong Ya had a glimpse of various avenues, and she seemed to be standing on the endless avenue. But in her heart, she recalled every bit of the time in the small courtyard. It is the persistence of cooking tea carefully just to get a fragrant tea soup. That is the wait to cook rice patiently, just to cook a pot of full rice. That is the exercise of carefully holding the knife, just to cut the perfect potato shreds. But at this moment, all kinds of strange phenomena were reflected around her. What is being cooked is no longer tea, but the road. What's being cut is no longer the ingredients, but nature. She is pioneering. Use heaven and earth as the cutting board, creation as the fish, the ocean as the soup, and the years as the fire. At this moment, she took a pioneering step. He has become an emperor. The great chef. Sister Gong Ya is so amazing, this cooking skills, are so unbelievable. It was an accident for Long Xuanhuan and others. At this moment, if Gong Yaruo had some realization, she raised her hand, and a ray of light struck towards the dark shadow in the sky above the dark world, the end of 10,000 paths. In front of 10,000 Dao's end, the ocean of 10,000 Daos is boiling, and the endless avenues are evolving. However, Gong Ya's Dao is as powerful as a broken bamboo, sweeping directly through it as if entering an uninhabited land. The phantom at the end of 10,000 roads, actually dissipated. Did she lose? Sister Yongzi didn't practice cooking in her previous life, so this is her biggest weakness. It's just a shadow, her dark true body is not here. Nanfan and others all spoke one after another. And Xuanhuan's big eyes were filled with determination, and she said, Sister, I will find your true identity and kill you. At this moment, the entire dark world has almost been occupied. Total victory. We won. Very good. Darkness is not invincible. In this life, we have a chance. The world is overjoyed. For all eternity, people's expressions have changed when they mention darkness. The catastrophe of darkness is like a knife hanging over people's heads. Parasitism, creation, gray mist, are all for the purpose of escaping and surviving. War. This choice has not been mentioned by anyone since the time when Emperor Xuantian led the heroes of Xuantian Emperor's court to conquer, but the entire army was wiped out. Now, I faced a direct battle and won. Xuanhuan is forbidden and morale is boosted. But, right now. Boom. Suddenly, between heaven and earth, there seemed to be a sound of great tide, shaking the 9 continents. Everyone turned back subconsciously. I saw that at the edge of the Xuanhuan world, in the hazy unknown land, darkness was like a tide, surging and sweeping towards the Xuanhuan world. Dark tide. Is this, a dark tide coming from the dark vault? The sky of darkness, the black disaster is coming. The black disaster that can destroy all civilizations is coming. The world shouted. It is the source of surging darkness, the endless dark matter, and the alienated power that transcends everything. That is the embodiment of the original law of the universe, and its power far exceeds that of the dark world at the end of 10,000 paths, overwhelming the 9 continents. The law of darkness drives the tide of darkness and finally comes to Xuanhuan. No. Escape quickly. I don't want to be swallowed by darkness. The world is wailing and exclaiming. Xuanhuan. Dark matter descended, shrouded in darkness, and countless creatures fell into death and mutation at this moment. Ah! An Earth King level powerhouse inhaled a mouthful of dark matter, and the source in his body exploded, turning into a corpse on the spot. Roar! A powerful tiger fled quickly in the mountain forest. It grew wings and was extremely fast. However, it was still swallowed by the darkness. The next moment, its eyes were filled with black mist and turned into a dark creature. Master wife, let's alienate together, hold me tight. In a certain cave, a young man shouted, and she hugged the master's wife tightly. However, the next moment, the master's wife turned into a rotting corpse, and his eyes also turned into darkness. Why, I can transform into a dark creature, but master wife, you can't, ah. The last remaining sanity of the young man made him roar unwillingly. This is a catastrophe. The black mist that contains the laws of darkness disappears wherever it goes, most of the living beings. Only a very few can become dark creatures and survive in the darkness. Black fog sweeps across Xuanhuan. No. It's over. Quickly, go to the steps of time and escape from this life. In front of Grey Mist Continent, many people in the desolate Sky Alliance army shouted. That's too late. But Huoling Mu Jianing and others were extremely calm, and they suddenly looked at Long Xuanhuan and others. Sister Nanfan, you go first. We stay and do our last bit. They want to sacrifice themselves to buy time for Nanfan and others to escape from this world. However, at this time, a voice sounded softly. There's no need to leave, this is where you belong. This voice sounded, and everyone at the scene was immediately shocked. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Goexin. Chapter 1214. There's no need to leave, this is where you belong. As this voice sounded, Nanfang, Long Xuanhuan, Duguyuking, etc. all turned around in shock. I saw two figures appearing in the dark world at some point. An old man with a skeleton necklace around his neck and a dancing knife on his waist. A young man who is elegant, aloof, and indifferent. Their eyes all fell on the young man. Because of this young man and their master Li Fan. Exactly the same. Master. Nanfan spoke subconsciously, his beautiful eyes a little distracted, and said. You. Dark Li Fan looked at Nanfan and said softly. I've found my home. He looked at the people in the small courtyard and said. Come with me, and I will lead you to the other side. His words are very magnetic and full of temptation. You ghost, are you trying to trick us a second time? However, at this time Lin Zhuhan suddenly roared, and a large number of red hairs appeared on his body, but they were all suppressed by the auspicious Kylin aura. At this moment, his power soared, and all the good fortune poured into him. Then, he suddenly slapped Li Fan in the dark. Rebel. Dark Li Fan's voice was cold, and he raised his hand, and a dark prisoner instantly fell on Lin Zhuhan's head. At this moment, Lin Zhuhan's connection with creation Mingming was directly severed, and the power he borrowed disappeared instantly. In the past, when you were the supreme being of creation, you refused to listen to my teacher's teachings and tried to be disrespectful to my teacher. How dare you do something wrong today? Dark Li Fan said coldly. Tianqi Dao, he is really proficient in Tianqi Dao. Zhang Li frowned. This Dark Li Fan doesn't look like a fake. The heavenly master Tao used to deal with Lin Zhuhan is indeed exactly the same as Lin Zhuhan. It's him. The dark paths on the forbidden ancient roads originated from him. Lu Rang opened his mouth and said. Back then, when we set foot on the forbidden ancient road, he was the one we saw on the dark path. At that time, junior brother Lin, with his red hair all over his body, slapped the rotten slave he sent. At this moment, Long Xuanhuan had raised his fist and said. Him. He showed his true intention of being the strongest in martial arts and blasted away. Immediately, Nanfan, Lu Rang, Qing Chen, De Guyuking, Zhang Li, Wu Dade, Gong Yat and others all took action with all their strength. In their previous life, they saw the dark Li Fan just as they set foot on the forbidden ancient road. As a result, their Taoist hearts collapsed, their bodies died, and they were transformed into evil corpses. But today, even though they saw it with their own eyes, their Taoist hearts did not waver at all, and they went straight to fight. Meaningless. Dark Li Fan shook his head and raised his hand casually. At this moment, many avenues, laws, etc. are directly displayed. A piano sound sounded, which was the Emperor's song of breaking the formation, played with the power of transcending darkness, and the music of the south wind was thrown into chaos. A burst of dark true dragon energy surged out. It was the 6 heaven hunting techniques practiced by Long Xuanhuan, but at this moment, it was so overwhelming that he couldn't breathe. A dark grass appeared and entangled the green grass in Lu Rang's road scene using the grafting method used in Lu Rang's cultivation. The 4 words Tianese with a sword flashed with unparalleled black light. De Guyuking could not even lift his hand. 9 lives chess games were spread across the field, the old Xuanhuan turtle was trembling, and Zhang Li's face was pale. Several dark creatures appeared, including dark phoenixes and giant geese. They pecked Wu Dade into a rage, leaving black wounds on his body. A teapot evolved from the Great Dao blocked Gong Ya, preventing her from even manifesting the Great Dao. With just a wave of his hand, he really showed the way of cultivation for everyone in the small courtyard. It is no different from what Li Fan taught them. All were suppressed. In fact, not only the people in the small courtyard, but also the Li Tianxian palace in Huo Linger's hand at the back could no longer be used. The hairpin in Mu Jianning's hand was as heavy as a mountain and could not be lifted. Yun Chen and others were completely beaten. Suppress. This is just a wave of dark Li Fan's hand. I'm here. According to the laws of the universe, alienate them. Beside darkness Li Fan, darkness jumping God saw this and was ready to take action. However, in the dark Li Fan glanced at him lightly and said, "Do you have the final say here, or do I? Third brother, are you having trouble finding your position? Want to fight?" Hearing this, the great god of darkness Tiao was so angry that he gritted his teeth, but he was helpless and said, "Okay, you're second, you're amazing, come on." Dark Li Fan then turned his head lightly, looked at Nanfan and others, and said, "I was the one who killed you back then, and I am the one who taught you in this life. The universe has yin and yang, darkness and light, but this law does not allow life. In this life, he and I have become one." He waved his hand and actually showed pictures. That was the first time Li Fan met Nanfeng and Zi Ling. On a mountain peak, Li Fan painted and played the piano and took them back to the small courtyard. It was Long Xuanhuan and Lu Rang. In the southern region of Xiantian realm, they had to go to an unknown mountain village because of the neglect of the dynasty and the mistreatment of the section. As a result, they were taught the ways of fishing and farming in the small courtyard. It was De Guyuking and Qing Chen, standing outside the village, meditating hard, trying to solve Li Fan's mathematical problem of finding how many degrees angle 3 equals. That was Zhang Li and Wu Dade, heading to the Xiantian realm from other realms. At that time, Zhang Li was already in decline as the sect's holy son, and Wu Dade could only raise pigs. That was when Lin Zhuzhan followed Xuanhuan back to the small mountain village and was defeated by Li Fan. That was when Xuanhuan had just awakened and entered the small mountain village with Ming Tianbei. As a demon king, she was extremely domineering, but she was scared to tears when she stepped into the small courtyard. That was when Gong Ya went to look for the demon king, but she met Aunt Wang at the entrance of the village, and was rated as pretty and handsome by Aunt Wang. That's every bit of life in a small mountain village. They had dinner together, plowed the fields together, danced radio gymnastics together, and ate, drank and had fun together. We don't have to stick to white and black, and throw ourselves into the darkness. We are still us. The small mountain village will last forever, and everything in the world will last forever. Darkness is cruel, suppressing everything in the white mist, but it is also kind. In the darkness, you will get inexhaustible time and years. Dark Li Fan spoke in a low voice and said, I have also entered the darkness. I am your master, and that body has become one with me. He waved his hand, and another scene appeared. It was Dark Li Fan walking outside the small mountain village. In the small mountain village, the Li Fan familiar to Nanfan and others came out, smiled slightly, and became one with Dark Li Fan. Seeing this scene, Nanfan, Xuanhuan, and others were shocked. No. Could it be that Master and he have really become one? He knows everything that happened in the small mountain village, and knows every word that the Master said to us. He may really be the Master. At this moment, the big black dog gritted his teeth and said, Wow, even the silent one can't see through the Master's ways, can't hear the Master's voice, can't see the Master's thoughts. He can know all this. Most likely, most of the Master really becomes one with it. Got it? Woof woof woof, Master, you are really gone. The big black dog was howling loudly, like a ghost crying or a wolf howling. It was a heartbroken and extremely sad cry. But at this moment, Wu Dade and others had no intention of caring about how unpleasant the howling was, but they were all in a daze. The big black dog is right, the Master cannot be listened to or probed, not even the silent one can do it. Is this person in front of me, really one with the Master? Big brother. At this moment, even Xining was in a daze. She looked at Li Fan and said, Brother, do you still remember the tree at the entrance of the village? Dark Li Fan sighed slightly and said, Before you return to the village, I will sit at the entrance of the village every year when the plum trees bloom and fall. Hearing this, a trace of tears filled Xuanhuan's big eyes, and she said, As long as I'm with my big brother, it doesn't matter whether it's white mist or black mist. At this moment, the source of darkness suddenly fell in front of Xuanhuan on Li Fan's body. The heart is as peaceful as sweet wine. Her origin changed rapidly. Suddenly, black energy lingered around her, and her eyes became cold and dark. Xuanhuan has been transformed into a dark creature. Sister Xuanhuan. Duguyuking and others all exclaimed. Xuanhuan practices the path of immutability. If she doesn't want to, the darkness cannot alienate her. Nanfan smiled miserably and said, She is right. Master has gone to darkness. As long as you can follow Master, it doesn't matter whether it is darkness or light. She also took in the origin of darkness and was transformed by Dark Li Fan. I didn't expect that this life is still just a big dream, haha, it's a big dream. Master has gone to the darkness, and this big dream should end. Zhang Li's long song should be cried. I once wanted to level the sky of darkness with one sword, but now I have plunged into it. Is this the ups and downs of life? Duguyuking was so distraught that he broke his Huangtian pen and closed his eyes. No fight, darkness, I admit that you won. I won't grow red hair anymore, I will grow black hair. Lin Zhuhan shook his head and broke the peachwood sword on his body. At this moment, they all gave up their previous ideals and ambitions. If Li Fan is still here, then they will fight against the darkness at all costs. But now, Li Fan has become a part of the darkness. It doesn't matter anymore. The so-called courage is no longer important, the so-called firmness is no longer important, even if all the creatures in the world die. It doesn't matter anymore. Because, small mountain village, small courtyard, Li Fan. This is what they believe in, what they risk their lives to protect. When all these have been alienated. So, what's the point of persisting? What's the point of living? At this moment, Nanfan, Xuanhuan, Lu Rang, Duguyuking, Qing Chen, Zhang Li, Wu Dade, Gong Ya, and Xuanhuan have all been alienated. They became dark creatures. No, they are alienated by your laws, not the laws of the universe. At this time, the Dark Master suddenly frowned. In this world, the supreme thing is the original law of the universe. Under the universe, Jizhe and Li Fan are the only two beings who have given birth to their own laws. In this way, these people are controlled by Dark Li Fan instead of truly becoming slaves of the universe. My original law is the original law of the universe. Dark Li Fan said lightly and said, "Do you believe that I can even kill you on behalf of darkness?" Hearing this, Master Tiao immediately fell silent. That's right. Number one in the world didn't say anything. You, the third child, have been whining all day long. Is it useful? Dark Li Fan spoke casually. Wow, Master, where is my dark origin? At this time, the big black dog looked at Dark Li Fan eagerly. In the dark, Li Fan rubbed the dog's head vigorously and said, "Good dog, wait a minute. It won't be that fun after you become the dog of darkness. Well, go aside and show me how to hold a plate in your mouth." The big black dog's eyes straightened when he heard this, but he still lowered his head and ran away with the plate in his mouth. Dark Li Fan then looked at Huo Linger and others, smiled and said, "You also come with me." And now, on the other side, in front of the steps of the years, the middle-aged man in white robe continued to tell the story. Facing the tide of darkness, those who followed the great emperor eventually turned into dark creatures. The name of this story is Betrayal. Good night. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xin. Chapter 1215. The name of this story is Betrayal. Jizhe's words were calm and indifferent, but there seemed to be a trace of reminiscence in his eyes, even though this recollection was so short-lived and undetectable. He watched as his former friends turned into creatures in the darkness. Those old friends started attacking him crazily. The lonely one smiled and said, "It was a cruel fight. If you can't give up friendship, you will die." Yongzi rode. "So, did he kill all his friends?" The lonely man stood up and said, "I'll change the place and tell you the ending of this story." As soon as he finished speaking, Yun 11 suddenly realized that the surrounding space was moving rapidly, and he was no longer in the grey mist continent, nor on the dark floating soil there. She appeared over a mountain forest very close to a small mountain village. From here, you can see a very high mountain peak that towers into the clouds. At the foot of the mountain is the undulating sea of cause and effect fog, and on the mountainside are the meandering streams of time. On the top of the mountain, there was only a dead old pine tree. Under the old pine tree, two girls were waiting. Zi Ling, Bai Qian. Yun 11 spoke in surprise. The middle-aged man in white robe also appeared beside Yun 11 and said softly, "Alienation is not terrible, but fratricidal betrayal can destroy people's hearts. Now, in the dark world created by Wandao Ending, Nanfan, Long Zixuan, Zinning and others have all been alienated by Dark Li Fan. Huo Ling Mu Jianing, Mu Wanqing, Wu Xiaocan, Sunny of the Nine Tribes, Chang Sun Changqing, Emperor Yang Chu, Yun Chen, etc. did not escape this disaster. The entire Taboo Nine Continents, the strongest resistance force, has been disintegrated. They became like slaves in the darkness, following the Dark Li Fan indifferently and numbly. According to your plan with Jizhe, these people should be allowed to deal with my Dao body next." Dark Li Fan spoke. The Dark Jump God nodded and said, "All he cares about is his inner demons, and if you want him to let go of his inner demons, the only thing he cares about is betrayal, death, and destruction. Betrayal by an old friend, this is his first guillotine." Dark Li Fan clicked his tongue and said, "I knew that Jizhe's method of dealing with my Tao body was nothing more than to let my Tao body experience what he had experienced back then, in order to break the state of mind and the original laws of my Tao body. However, it is true that his relatives and friends betrayed him, his beauty died, and in the end he lost hope, so he became a lonely person. This kind of experience is enough to make anyone feel lonely. Let's go. Dark Li Fan waved his hand, and at this moment, Nanfeng, Long Xuanhuan, and others who had been alienated by him followed him and disappeared from the place. And at this moment, when Jia, Yun 11, Dark Li Fan, the alienated Nanfeng and others all disappeared from the dark world, a woman in white appeared in front of the steps of time. Holding the world tree in her hand, she jumped into the passing years. Zhang Shui. After defeating Silent Kill, she seemed to have disappeared from the battlefield. Until now, she finally reappeared and jumped into the long river of time according to the big black dog's words. Wrong. The dark jumping god felt something, he turned back subconsciously and said. Someone started the long river of time. Dark Li Fan said lightly and said. The world is so big, there are always a few little shrimps escaping, but it doesn't matter anymore. The person who escaped is not a disciple of my Taoist body, nor does he belong to the small courtyard or small mountain village where he is. He has nothing to do with him, so don't worry about it. The dark jumping god silently operates the ignorant way, and he can detect all the cause and effect in this world. Then he finally nodded. What Darkness Li Fan said is true. The person who jumped into the long river of time does not have a master-disciple relationship with that person, let alone a person from that small mountain village. At most, people like Huo Ling Mu Jianing, etc. have some small involvement, but the cause and effect is not big. He has already jumped into the past, and it will take a lot of effort to pursue him now. The most important thing at the moment is to deal with that person. He didn't pay much attention immediately. The next moment, they appeared in a mountain forest. In this mountain forest, it seems ordinary, but the entire area has been shrouded in some kind of law and power. Every speck of dust is like the sand of the universe, and every plant is like the soul of the universe. A peak above all else. Cause and effect only reaches the foot of the mountain, and time only floods the mountainside. Dark Li Fan, the great master of dancing, led a group of alienated masters to climb the mountain. Now, on top of the mountain, Xiling and Subakian were still waiting. They guarded the scroll and waited for the master to return. No need to wait. Suddenly, a voice sounded from behind. Xiling and Subakian turned back suddenly. They saw the Darkness Li Fan, and the senior sisters and brothers who had turned into darkness. Master? Sister Nanfan? Junior brother Long, you. Zi Ling's big eyes were like a pool of autumn water, blooming with surprise. No. He is not the master is still in the painting. Subakian spoke warily. Dark Li Fan smiled and said. He is still in the painting, but he will never come back. Zi Ling bit her silver teeth and said. Don't try to trick us. She raised her pen, and the true phoenix fire burned instantly, bringing up a long river of flames and sweeping towards the Darkness Li Fan. Dark Li Fan did not take action, but simply disappeared from the place. That flame was about to fall on Nanfeng and the others. No. Zi Ling was taken aback and hurriedly took it back. However, Nanfeng, Lin Zhihan, Wu Dade and others seemed to have lost their minds and rushed towards Xiling and Subakian. If you dare to attack Master, you will be punished. Long Xuanhuan evolved martial arts and became extremely powerful, killing Zi Ling. Dugu Yuking used his hand as a sword, and the dark sword energy swept away horizontally. Zhang Li's Othello line has appeared at the feet of Zi Ling and Subakian. Are they all alienated? Subakian spoke in shock. But Zi Ling, with determination written in her big eyes, said. No matter who turns into darkness, they are the enemy. We cannot let them get close to the master. Sister Nanfan, junior brother Lin, I'm sorry. At the critical moment, her brush quickly flew across the drawing board. Her speed is so fast that the brush almost never leaves the rice paper, like a dragonfly touching the water or a swallow flying. And with her painting brush, many of her fellow disciples who were coming towards her, actually disappeared from the scene at this moment. The music of the south wind sounded only once, and she herself had disappeared. Xuanhuan's martial arts has not yet been touched, and his whole body and fist power have been wiped out. Lu Rang's grass and people disappeared. Duguyuking's sword energy is reflected on the scroll. Sitting in pure silence under the Bodhi tree in the painting. Wu Dade, holding a mace and standing behind Qing Chen with a fierce look, has also entered the picture. Gongya's Dao pot can refine the magical power of Dao, and it is difficult to escape from the scroll at this moment. Zhang Li's black and white chess lines filled the entire picture. Even Lin Zhuzhan, who was surrounded by the power of darkness and could almost kill the Emperor of Heaven, also entered the picture at this moment. In just a moment, Zai Ling had drawn many of his fellow disciples. This little girl is the most inappropriate. The big black dog who followed Dark Li Fan couldn't help but muttered. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xian. Chapter 1216. On top of the mountain of transcendent cause and effect, Ling Yu. Zai Ling's picture scroll has been completed. In the scroll, there are Nanfan playing the piano, Long Xuanhuan pumping his fists, Lin Zhuzhan drawing talismans, Zhang Li playing chess. They have all been painted by Zai Ling. In your previous life, you were already my disciple. Dark Li Fan spoke, with a hint of appreciation in his words. Huadao, you learned very well. But they are all your classmates. Why don't you think about why they are willing to join me in the darkness? Have you ever thought that I am the original, and what is in the scroll is just an evil thought of mine? His words were calm and full of magnetism, making people subconsciously want to believe them. However, Zai Ling was extremely sober and said, whether you are the sorrow left by the master or his past, it doesn't matter. Master is still in the painting. If she and Subakian had not followed Li Fan here, and had not personally seen Li Fan enter the scroll, perhaps they might have been deceived by the Dark Li Fan like Nanfeng and others. After all, Dark Li Fan is indeed exactly the same as Li Fan. He knew everything about the small mountain village, and even knew all Li Fan's thoughts and every detail of Li Fan's treatment of them. This was the key to why he was able to make Nanfan and others believe in his words. So what if he's in the painting? Destined to fail. Dark Li Fan said softly, then looked at Xian Ning beside him and said, kill them. Xian Ning immediately stepped forward and looked at Zai Ling and Su Baiqian. She is the only one who is not included in the painting. After all, she is already supreme. Even if Xiling goes against the will of heaven, it is impossible for her to be included in the painting. Xian Ning, have you forgotten Master? You once said that you would wait for Master to come back. Subakian opened her mouth, trying to wake up Xian Ning. However, Xining just whispered. You are wrong. Big Brother is already in the dark. I don't want to leave Big Brother, so I will beat you to death. She raised her small palm and slapped it towards Xiling and Subakian. Xiling and Subakian were both shocked and immediately tried their best. Zai Ling's painting brush was very fast, drawing various natural chasms, etc., trying to stop Subakian's illusion. But, it's no use. Everything drawn before Xian Ning's palm, which was the end of 10,000 paths, disappeared, and Subakian's illusion was even more useless. Xiling and Subakian both hit the ground hard, vomiting blood. Seriously injured. What's in the scroll is the devil, the evil thoughts that shouldn't exist, the maggots that go against the will of the universe. Dark Li Fan whispered in Zining's ear and said, he should not appear in this world. Let him return to silence. Throw him into the darkest cage in the dark sky, so that he can no longer see the light behind him, and can no longer find the anchor of this world. Xuanhuan whispered. Whatever Big Brother tells me, I will do it. She walked over and glanced at the scroll on the stone table. The scroll on the stone table depicts a scene where beautiful mountains and forests are connected to a small mountain village. In the mountains and forests, on a peak that transcends cause and effect and transcends time, Li Fan sits alone under an old pine tree. At this moment, Li Fan's expression in the painting seems lonely and sad, as if he is desperate and confused. It was as if he had seen the scene in reality where the people he cared about were killing each other. You are a shadow that should not exist, the dark prison is where you should go. Xuanhuan whispered, then grabbed the painting. She used her supreme power to throw the scroll in the direction of the dark dome. This picture seems to have traveled through time and space, floating in the sky, rising and falling in the universe, passing through the door of darkness and entering the dome of darkness. At this moment, in the dark dome, countless strong men were shocked. That one. That one is in the scroll. Use the power of the dark vault to open the darkest cage and lock him up. At this moment, many supremely powerful people were speaking. The dazzling dark dome, countless dark stars, and the massive power of darkness at this moment opened a darkest cage. It was an indescribable darkness, which seemed to be the source of all darkness. The darkness was like a substantial wall, rejecting all light, killing all thoughts, and suppressing all looking back and thinking. There is the eternal silence, the unchanging darkness, the original coldness, and the arrogance of the universe. The entire dark dome seems to exist because of the dark ocean. The laws of the universe are intertwined in that darkness. The scroll fell into the air and was completely swallowed up by the darkness, never to be seen again. It's as if that picture scroll has never appeared in this world. Even if it had appeared in this world, it had been completely erased at this moment. Now, forbidden 9 continents, Xuanhuan continent, and terrifying beasts and forests. As the picture scroll floated away, the surrounding mountains, forests, and peaks suddenly returned to normal and were no longer an area that was difficult to enter. The peaks are just ordinary peaks, with birds flying over, streams flowing, mountains undulating, and mist curling up. The dark tide sweeping across Zhu has arrived as promised and is about to swallow up this last piece of pure land. He will be buried in darkness forever. Li Fan whispered in the dark, and then he walked up to the seriously injured Xialing and Subakian, waved, and his own laws were being released. No. Xialing raised the brush with difficulty and wanted to take action against the Dark Li Fan. However, Dark Li Fan is known as the second in the world and the only one in the universe who gave birth to this law. Even if she is the Emperor of Heaven and the Supreme, she cannot compete with him. The eyes of Subakian and Xiling were gradually filled with black mist. Well, the darkest cage in the dark vault can cut off his connection with the present world. Dark Li Fan spoke, smiled, and said, "Now, even the people he cares about in this world have been alienated. Even if that connection is restored, what he sees when he looks back is emptiness. The stronger the person, the more he needs the support of reality. He needs to find his own anchor among these ordinary or humble creatures. Once that anchor disappears, the stronger he is, the faster he will forget who he is. In the end, even if I became the person I hated the most, I still didn't realize it." As he spoke, he glanced at the dark dancing master behind him and said, "Third brother, what do you think?" The dark dance master looked gloomy and said, "Darkness is the anchor that all souls must obey." Dark Li Fan smiled and said, "Certainly. What's your plan next?" "To destroy that small mountain village." The dark jumping god shook his head and said, "It can't be destroyed. When I left, although the small mountain village was strong, it was just a gathering place for a group of supreme beings. But later, your Tao body passed away. He planted trees, built roads, improved the geology, he did too many things. The status of the small mountain village has reached the level of the supreme. Unless the one who is alone is gone, the two of us will not be able to deal with it, not in that small mountain village. Dark Li Fan said. So, go home and rest. Dark Jumping God's way. No, we have to chase someone. Dark Li Fan said. Oh? Who? Dark Jumping God's way. The great disciple of the Silent One. The solitary one. Dark Li Fan smiled and said. Why are you chasing him? Even if you betrayed Jizhe and didn't die completely, in this life, he will be nothing more than a sidekick at best. How can he defy the will of heaven? Dark Jumping God's way. It wasn't possible back then, but in this life, it's very possible. Except for your Tao body, he is the most dangerous thing in the world. Good night. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xin. Chapter 1217. Betray. Somewhere secretly, Yongzi witnessed everything that happened just above the mountain. Xiling and Subakian, who once came from the same small courtyard, fought against each other. Xiling and Subakian struggled to resist, but were still alienated. Xining even took action and threw Li Fan's scroll into the darkest cage of the Dark Dome. In the darkest cage, all connections with reality will be severed, and Li Fan will endure the loneliness and torture of endless time and space. The voice of Jizhe then sounded, still calm and cold, saying. At the end of the first story, the man who once grew from a boy to a supreme being finally broke into the dark tide alone. That is endless darkness, an eternal cage. It is a forbidden place for any life. Entering it, no matter how strong, proud, or determined, will be conquered by the darkness and the universe. The best as a result, he became completely insane and eventually died of madness. There seemed to be a touch of emotion in Jizhe's words, saying. Then comes another story. Do you want to hear it? Yongzi still looked in the direction of the Dark Dome and said. The next story is very simple. The boy who had become supreme and was betrayed by his best friend finally couldn't bear the eternal loneliness and was alienated in the endless darkness, right? The lonely one smiled and said. The reason why a story becomes a story is because there will be ups and downs. The ups and downs and fluctuations themselves are the essence of the story. He saw the light in the midst of darkness. The lonely man's eyes were recalling, and he murmured. This story will be a bit long. I have 30,000 years left to tell it. At this moment, in a small mountain village. The entire forbidden 9 continents have been shrouded in black mist. Life civilization has fallen into great annihilation, and no one can escape in this world. The vast majority of life has died, and only a handful have transformed into dark creatures. Outside the mountain village, heavy fog filled the air, and in the black mist, various alienated creatures howled from time to time. However, in the small mountain village, it is like another world. Everything remains the same here. At the entrance of the village, the second uncle was still basking in the sun, although there was no sun now. However, he did not change his leisurely attitude at all. He made tea, squinted his eyes, and when he was really bored, he played chess with himself. In the field, Uncle John grazes the old yellow cattle and the big black cattle on the field ridge as usual, eating the weeds beside the field ridge, while he drills out small potatoes one by one in the field with a sickle. According to Xiao Li, potatoes around the Dragon Boat Festival are the most delicious. Stewed in a pot of oil, they are even more delicious. Uncle John thought happily, and he peeled off the branches and leaves of the potato. When he saw the bulge in the soil, he turned it around with a knife, and a potato rolled out of the soil. Not long after, he had already picked up 7 or 8 kilograms. Then, he led the cow and walked towards the road. When he walked to the roadside and saw the second uncle, he said, "Don't wait, It's such a heavy fog, Xiao Li and the others won't be able to come back for a while. The second uncle didn't open his eyes and said, I heard the sound of the darkest prison opening. If I guessed correctly, Xiao Li should have gone to the darkest realm. At the end of the dark realm, through the supreme sea of corpses, you can see the dam. Uncle Zhang said. Even if Supreme wanted to cross the darkest realm, it would still take tens of thousands of years. It's still early. The second uncle said. Do you think Xiao Li can break into the embankment this time? Uncle Zhang said, I'm not sure. The dam has the power to kill everything in the past and present world, but it can't kill Xiao Li. I've always been curious about how Xiao Li did it. The second uncle smiled and said, perhaps Xiao Li does not belong to the past or the present world. Uncle Zhang was stunned and said, what do you mean? Could it be that Xiao Li can come from the future? The second uncle smiled leisurely and said, why isn't it possible? The future, the darkest time of all eternity. Uncle Zhang murmured, you and I have both fished for the shadows of the heavens to look into the future, hoping to find a glimmer of hope in the future, but all we saw was the same darkness. Is there still life in the distant future? The second uncle said calmly. Just because you and I can't see it doesn't mean that Xiao Li couldn't see it back then. Uncle Zhang fell into deep thought. Xiao Li. Did he really come from the distant future and travel through time? He whispered. The dam can kill everything in the past and present life. It has the absolute power of this law. No matter what the state of mind or the strength, it cannot escape. But, if Li Fan really comes from the future. But, if he comes from the future, the embankment cannot kill him, and he cannot get close to the embankment either. The gap between him and the embankment is like a chasm. We can look at each other from a distance, but we can never get close. Uncle Zhang spoke confidently. Even if the future and the present world are in the same place, the time and space distance between them is unimaginable. The second uncle smiled and said, wait, stop guessing. At our level, guessing is useless. Are you digging into potatoes? Uncle Zhang said. Yes, we are preparing stewed potatoes. The second uncle immediately stood up from the recliner and said, potatoes braised in oil are great, but they will be even more delicious with good wild boar oil. After saying that, he suddenly reached out to explore the black fog outside. In the black mist, a huge wailing and struggling sound suddenly came from a distance, and the next moment, a huge black beast was actually caught alive in front of the village. That was a black mist creature that surpassed the Emperor of Heaven and reached a quasi-supreme state. This black mist creature, even in the vast sky of darkness, is considered a giant, second only to the Supreme One. After entering the Forbidden Nine Continents, it has dominated the world and has no rivals, but now it has no power to resist. I've been waiting for a long time. Even the Supreme Beings don't dare to come over. Let's eat it first. The second uncle smiled, and the giant beast was immediately thrown into the village. After entering the village, this quasi-supreme level dark creature suddenly changed in size and turned into a big black fat pig weighing only 300 to 400 kilograms. If we only catch this little, who will be able to eat it? The darkness next door looked at it and thought we couldn't afford it. Uncle Zhang also had itchy hands and scratched at the black fog outside. The next moment, all kinds of powerful dark creatures appeared outside the small mountain village. Alien creatures with huge tentacles, devouring monsters like mountains, dark demonic birds with shadow wings. There are 7 or 8 of them. Moreover, the weakest among them are all at the level of Emperor of Heaven. After being thrown into a small mountain village, all these powerful dark creatures, who roamed the Forbidden Nine Continents and conquered invincible opponents, all changed. They turned into cows, sheep, chickens, ducks, bleating and quacking on the ground. I want you to hold on less. Do you understand sustainable development? The second uncle kept shaking his head. What are you afraid of? After we finish eating, we might as well go hunting in the dark dome. Uncle John looked at the prey in front of him with great satisfaction and said, "Let's have a party." The second uncle said, "Open the banquet." And at this moment, in the small courtyard, the master has entered the dark realm. The old hen spoke. "Should we follow our master and conquer the sea of corpses?" In the pond, the koi carp transformed into a real dragon, full of fighting spirit. Since ancient times, in front of the dam, there have been mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Under the reflection of the law of darkness, various projections will be born from them and evolve into the dome of darkness. Master builds a dam, we will destroy the sea of corpses. The real dragon danced for 9 days, and even the black mist outside the mountain village began to billow and fluctuate. Beyond the dam, there is a supreme sea of corpses, which has been formed by the accumulation of corpses of countless strong men since ancient times. The dome of darkness is nothing more than the projection of the law of darkness reflecting upon the sea of corpses. Keep waiting. The clear voice of the peach tree sounded. How long we have to wait? Even the old hen seemed to be looking forward to it. Wait for a beam of light to appear, wait for a beam of light to disappear. The peach trees whispered. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Xuanhuan. Chapter 1218. Above the 9 continents. Black fog filled the air and yellow smoke billowed. The war in the entire forbidden world has ended, but before reincarnation, the war still continues. Lord of Reincarnation, you can't stop me. Be punished. Throw yourself into the darkness and I will grant you eternal life. Don't resist needlessly anymore. Many supremes are drinking loudly. Stoppers, darkers, and more avenues are blooming, gathering to blast towards the Nahi bridge in the yellow smoke, which is the entrance to reincarnation. But on the Nahi bridge, a man stood tall and motionless. He faced the many supreme things in the dark sky and remained silent, evolving into a Tai Chi figure. That is the collection of all his ways, the reflection of immortals and demons, the interweaving of light and darkness, the mutual pursuit of life and death. In the end, the yin-yang fish rotates forever, without end. No beginning and no end. The lightless path of the Dark One is permeating the air, and the dark prison seems to be invading the reincarnation, but it is blocked by the Tai Chi Dao diagram, and even the darkness cannot pass through. The non-moving path of stillness is applied to the Tai Chi Dao diagram, but it seems to have no effect. In the Tai Chi Dao diagram without beginning and end, movement is stillness, and stillness is movement. Various other supreme avenues are also roaring, but they cannot take a step beyond black and white. He stood on the Nahi bridge, protecting the entire reincarnation behind him, like a mountain. There is no beginning and no end. This kind of path is comparable to the ignorant way of dancing, right? We can't crack it. This person's strength is second only to the great dancing master. Various supreme ways have been tried, but to no avail, leaving many supremes in the dark vault at a loss. I'll go get someone. The Dark One roars. He closed his eyes and contacted the Master of Darkness. The next moment, in front of the billowing yellow smoke, 2 figures suddenly appeared. It was surprisingly the one who danced the great god, and Li Fan on the throne of darkness. Behind Li Fan, there was also a group of powerful people, including Xuanning, Nanfeng, Ziling, Longzixuan, Subakian, etc. They have all transformed into dark creatures and followed dark Li Fan. Seeing Li Fan in the dark, Nanfeng, Ziling, etc., and the black and white on the Nahi bridge, a flash of fluctuation flashed in his eyes. Please take action and kill this person. Stopper looked at the dark jumping god. However, the dark god jumped at black and white on the Nahi bridge, but he frowned and said, without beginning or end, there is no solution under this law. The stopper asked anxiously, saying, even the path of ignorance can't be broken. In the eyes of many supreme beings, apart from the two people who have given birth to this law in the world, the one who jumps to the great God is undoubtedly the first person. Dark jumping God's way. I am omniscient, not invincible. I can also evolve a way that has no beginning and no end, but what's the use? It has no beginning and no end, and I can't break it. At most, I can be on a tie with him. The Dark One said in a deep voice. Are we just going to let him live like this? Reincarnation is not broken. Even though all the creatures in the Forbidden Nine Continents are extinct now, they can still reappear from reincarnation one day. The one who jumped up was looking at Dark Li Fan. Apart from Jizhe, the only one in this world who can decipher the way of no beginning and no end is him. However, Dark Li Fan smiled, looked at Black and White, and said, I have given myself to the darkness, why not follow me? Black and White stood on the Nahi bridge, neither humble nor arrogant, with such calm eyes as he said. Senior Li is an unparalleled master. I don't believe that mere darkness can swallow him up. Furthermore, Senior Li has fought against darkness all his life. If he really turns into a dark creature, I will follow his legacy and cut off his dark body, destroy the dark sky, cut down the strange dam, until he dies. When I respect Senior Li, I respect his ways. When I follow Senior Li, I follow his aspirations. He looked at the Dark Li Fan, a bright fighting spirit burst out in his eyes, and said, But I want a fight. At this moment, the black and white chess lines cross the sky, reflecting all the worlds, the Tai Chi Dao map hangs in the air, and the great grind of reincarnation emerges. Even though he faced many strong men such as Dark One and Stop One, he still failed to give his best. At this moment, facing the darkness Li Fan, he showed his strongest posture. Seeing this scene, many supremes present were shocked. For all eternity, the only one who is qualified to fight against the darkness Li Fan, is the only one. Even the Supreme One in the dark sky can only retreat, even the Great Master does not have such courage. But, at this moment, Black and White, with their supreme posture, want to fight against this law. Dark Li Fan smiled slightly and said, As expected of the person I chose back then. He turned back, patted the dancing master, and said, Third brother, although you can also show the Tao without beginning and end, and you know more than him, you don't have the courage. You are more stubborn. How about you change your name to Lao Si from now on? The Dark Dance Master. Dark Li Fan smiled and said, That's all, let's break this way. He was ready to take action, and there was no beginning or end to the truth. But, right now. Boom. In a certain direction in the dark Jizhu, an astonishing energy suddenly came. That is the Supreme Chi Machine. At the scene, many supreme powerhouses turned their heads to look, and saw in that direction, a Tai Chi Dao diagram, reflecting the sky, frantically obliterating the black mist, and killing countless dark creatures. Another one without beginning or end. Many of the supreme experts present were surprised. No, that's a great dance. The Dark One was shocked and said. His soul appeared. Everyone in the Dark Dome knows that when the great God jumped into the Dark Dome, he had to hide all 3 souls and 7 souls. As a result, although he was born as a dark body in the darkness, his 3 souls and 7 souls still remained in the Forbidden 9 continents. The Master Jumper has finally come out, kill him. Kill this beast. He beat me badly back then. Kill him first. I won't give up until this guy dies. For a time, this group of supreme beings were all excited. Back then, when the great God jumped into the sky of darkness, before Jizhe took action, he was so arrogant. The Dark One, Jizhe, and even the others were all beaten by him. It can be said that those who dance with great gods are public enemies in the dark sky. It is precisely for this reason that the many supreme beings in the dark sky are so interested in the silent way of the Silent One. They even took action together and used many dead stars in the universe to refine the supreme formation for him. He understands. Just so that after the Silent One succeeds, he can find the soul of the great dancer and torture him. And now, the Tai Chi Dao diagram appears, and the Tao without beginning or end evolves. In this world, apart from Black and White himself and the Dark Dance Master, there is only the soul of the White Mist Dance Master who has such ability. Even Dark Li Fan stopped and smiled and said, "Let's go and capture your soul first, fourth brother." The Dark Master was extremely angry, but he did not dare to say anything and said in a deep voice, "Reincarnation is just a chance for those ants to regenerate. We will wipe out the strongest ones one by one, and these ants will have no choice but to die." After saying that, he and Dark Li Fan disappeared directly. "I am coming too." The Dark One and the Stopper also followed immediately. The remaining group of Supremes looked at each other in shock. "Who dares to fight?" Black and White spoke indifferently. A group of Supremes disappeared directly from the spot. Reincarnation is preserved. Did that person really join the darkness? On the Nahi Bridge, Po Meng came over and asked questions, and the 10 palaces of hell followed behind her. Nanfan and the others are really alienated. Yinzu Qing Cheng, now one of the 10 kings of hell, murmured, "I didn't expect that even Senior Li couldn't protect them." Sword Ancestor Yin Xuan was also filled with emotion. Xianning, even the top academics couldn't hold it. Demon Ancestor Wei looked complicated. Black and White's face was calm and seemed to have no fluctuations, and he said, "Do your own thing." Even though he felt a little heavy in his heart. However, we didn't see the tooth extraction monster. At this time, Tianan opened his mouth and said, "Isn't she alienated?" "Yes, where's the tooth extraction monster?" Mingzi Gijun was also confused. Hearing this, Black and White couldn't help but feel a slight movement in his heart. It's so dark. Somewhere in Zhuzhu, in a thick black fog, Ao Wushuan was groping forward and couldn't help but speak again. "It's so dark, how can you find the entrance to the secret world of reincarnation?" That place was probably swallowed up by the black mist. In his Taoist scenery, the aura of Master Tiao was a little disordered, and he said, "Escape quickly. Next, it will be your home court. Ao, run with all your strength. I have already lured the enemy to you. It's time for all the Supremes in the Dark Dome to chase you." Hearing this, Ao Wushuan suddenly became furious and said, "What? The great dancer, I'm not done with you." He ran away. "Good night." "Why say good night so early?" "Because I don't say good night, there are always people who have unrealistic illusions and think that I have updates. So good night." Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Goi Xin. Chapter 1219. Damn it, you're such a great dancer, where am I going to run? Ao Wushuan was galloping like lightning, his speed was extremely fast, the dark fire and black roses were blessing the Daijing ground, and even the small black tower had a chi movement revealed. Every step he took was like a supreme journey, transcending the distance of space. Go to the secret world of reincarnation. In the Taoist scenery, the master of dancing was lying on a chair, giving directions to Ao Wushuan, and then said to the Thunder Emperor and the Water Emperor, "Try a little harder. Didn't you see, old man, that I just overworked myself?" The Thunder Emperor and the Water Emperor were both cautious at the moment, and hurriedly followed the instructions of the great god of dance and increased their intensity. Now, they are in great awe of the dancing master. Just now, the master dancer actually stood up and danced. A master dance actually evolved into a Tai Chi diagram. The Tai Chi diagram was extremely amazing and contained an aura that surpassed the Emperor of Heaven. Although that realm was very far away from Water Emperor and others, they still understood what it meant. Supreme. The one who jumps to the great god is definitely the true supreme, and so far, he has evolved three completely different ways of supreme. No birth, no death, no beginning or end. How dare you be disrespectful in the face of such a being? You can't escape. But at this moment, the girl in black skirt on the other side spoke indifferently and said, Master is omnipresent, omniscient, and omnipotent, all he needs is a thought. Even if you were once ranked third in the world, you will only die. The eyes of the little monkey held a strange, cold, and indifferent look unique to darkness. Now, she no longer dares to use Xuanhuan's Tao at will in Ao Xuanhuan's Taoist scenery. After all, facing the master of dancing, she knew that her unparalleled way could not kill him. Moreover, this Taoist scenery was too complicated, and there were all sorts of things there, which made her a little shocked. The lonely one is everywhere, why don't you come and play in this scenic spot? He knows everything. Didn't you expect that one day his dark fire, dark rose, and even the lonely heart ape he cultivated with all his heart will be destroyed? Are you leaving? But the dancing master smiled and said, Jizhe is very strong, but not invincible. Little monkey, remember this sentence, there are people outside the world, and there is a sky outside the world. Xuanhuan had some anger in his eyes and said, If you slander master like this, you will suffer the consequences of darkness. The dancing master said leisurely, It's just the disaster of darkness. It's not like I haven't suffered it before. Do you think I'm afraid? How about we make a bet? I bet that the omnipotent Jizhe will never come to this scenic spot. He was very calm and confident. Xuanhuan gritted her silver teeth. She really didn't understand why the omnipotent master actually allowed the great master to hide here. Is it true that even master can't detect this Fang Dao scenery? This is impossible. And at this moment, under the guidance of Master Tiao, Ao Xuanhuan finally found the entrance to the secret world of reincarnation. He didn't hesitate and stepped directly into it. Entering the secret world of reincarnation and passing through the curtain of the great world, an ancient road suddenly appeared in front of him, as if extending from the after-images of many worlds, connecting the forbidden world with the other world. My old Ao is back. Ao Xuanhuan opened his mouth and looked up, only to see that this world was not completely invaded by the black mist. The fog of darkness has indeed penetrated the curtains and obstacles of the world, but on this forbidden ancient road, there are lush green grasses. Among those green grasses, the rich white fog seems to have formed a great wall, actually blocking the darkness. The spread of fog. Old Ao, I escaped all the way. I didn't expect that now I have to escape all the way back along the original road. Ao Xuanhuan sighed. Back then, he was originally the city lord of Shenjian City in the underworld fairyland. As a result, ever since he met the small mountain village, he has been running away from the underworld to the world of gods, from the world of gods to the ancestral realm of chaos, and from the ancestral realm of chaos to the grey mist. The sea, from the grey mist sea to the forbidden ancient road, to the forbidden world. Along the way, I have never escaped the vicious hands of the small mountain village. He ran away, but the village chased him, but he couldn't fly without wings. Over the years, his heart has been filled with sorrow and anger. Why is God teasing him like this? However, now that he is back, he is full of hope. Because that evil little mountain village has gone to the forbidden world, and it is absolutely safe for me to return to the carbine with this move. Run away quickly, don't sigh, those supreme speeds are very fast. The dancing master smiled slightly and said, By the way, in the supreme darkness, there seems to be someone who practices the way of no distance. If he knows your location, he can reach you with just a thought, regardless of distance. No matter how you run, you can't outrun him. When the time comes, Ao Baobao will become Ao Shize. When Ao Xuanhuan heard this, his teeth itched with hatred and he said, You great dancer, just wait for me. Then, he walked in the opposite direction along the forbidden ancient road. Now his speed was extremely fast, but in just a blink of an eye, he had already walked the forbidden ancient road and saw the grey fog sea of the past. The grey fog sea was once covered with grey fog, and it was the mortal enemy of the chaos ancestral realm. But now, the whole place is filled with white mist source energy, and the abyss left by the end of 10,000 paths has long since ceased to exist, and the two realms have merged into one. Do you know where is the safest place? The master jumper suddenly spoke. Xuanhuan said. Where? Master Tiao said, if you think about it carefully, where have you encountered small mountain villages, those people have passed by, and even the place where the village is located is the safest. Xuanhuan was startled, a small mountain village? However, he suddenly remembered that indeed, although darkness is evil, it seems to be a bit different in front of a small mountain village. Immediately, he began to recall, and then entered the area where the chaos ancestral realm once existed. And at this moment, the end of the forbidden ancient road, a group of dark and powerful people have appeared. The leader was obviously the one who secretly controlled Li Fan and the great master Tiao. The Dark One, the Stopper, and a group of other supremes followed closely behind. Brother Duhuo, you should come here first. The Dark One spoke with some complaints and looked at the middle-aged supreme next to him. This middle-aged supreme man is the best at pursuit among them. His name is Duhuo. He practices the way of no distance. With a single thought, he can ignore all space. When Duhuo heard this, he was smiling but not smiling, and said, Brother Dark Taoist, that is the soul of the great god of dance. If you want to take action, it should be done by the Black God Witch himself. He knows all the ways, and it only takes a moment to achieve the goal. He looked at the Dark Jump God. Among them, in addition to Duhuo, there is also the master of the Dark Jump who masters the way of distance. The Dark Dance Master just said in a deep voice. I have to keep an eye on them. He glanced at Li Fan's many disciples, including Nanfang, Ziling, Longzixuan, Subakian, and others. He was ordered by the Quiet One to alienate Nanfan and others, but the darkness Li Fan took action and alienated them with his own laws. He was always a little uneasy about this matter. Moreover, now that the person he cares about has entered the darkest realm, he is extremely important and must not make any mistakes. Otherwise, the mind of that kind of character is too strong. As long as he feels a glimmer of hope from behind, he may not be defeated. But Dark Li Fan smiled and said, What are you busy with? Walk slowly. Everyone, don't you think there is a different scenery in this world in front of you? Have you ever seen a world filled with white mist, or have you ever seen the four seasons with birds singing and flowers fragrant? It is eternally lonely, and it is also a good thing to see different scenery. Hearing the words, the dark ones, the stopped ones, etc. all want to speak but stop. They really want to say, look at it, chasing talent is a serious matter. However, even if this person transformed into darkness, his status in darkness far exceeded them, and they did not dare to say anything. Huh? There was a war in this place. Dark Li Fan stood at the end of the forbidden ancient road and waved his hand. At this moment, time and space were going back, showing the past 10 gods and 2 evil spirits, fighting the grey mist prince here to wipe out the black smoke. Dark Li Fan watched with relish. Behind him, Nanfan, Ziling, Longzixuan, Lu Rang, Duguyuking, Qing Chen, Zhang Li, Wu Dade, Lin Jujhan, Subakian, Gong Ya, etc. were also watching all this blankly. There seemed to be an imperceptible fluctuation in Xianning's big eyes filled with black mist. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xin. Chapter 1220. A battle in the past was replayed like a movie, and then ended. Dark Li Fan finished reading it with relish. But the other supreme beings were simply bored. They had no interest in the battle between these ants, and they all wanted to quickly hunt down the soul of Tiao Dashan. However, this one mainly stayed to admire, and the one who danced the great god had to follow him, and the others did not dare to face the soul of the great dancer alone. Therefore, a team composed of majestic and supreme beings was actually delayed in their march. Very slow. After reading it, Li Fan Ke said, "Come on, let's keep going." Only then did the group move. However, not long after they advanced, they stopped again. This was once the territory of the 10 origin tribes of the Forbidden Ancient Road. A group of Li Fan's disciples also had a big battle here. A group of Supremes were dragged to watch another movie. If this continues, we won't be able to catch up with that guy. Right. This will only allow that guy to escape. A group of Supremes were all a little angry. Even the dancing master said coldly, "What exactly do you want to do?" Dark Li Fan smiled lightly and said, "Fourth, are you confused about your position again? What do I want to do? Do I need to explain it to you?" The Dark Dance Master was speechless for a while, and his fists were clenched. "I can't beat him," so angry. Actually, if you want to capture the soul of the Dancing Master, you don't need to be afraid of him at all. Dark Li Fan glanced at the other Supremes again and said, "Relying on the soul alone and using the Supreme method will consume a lot of soul power every time. If you are a great person, you may have fallen into a deep sleep at this moment. He no longer poses a threat to you, just go and catch him." Hearing the words, "These supreme things are all in my heart." They had to follow these two people because they were worried that they would not be able to defeat the soul of the Dancing Master. If what Dark Li Fan said is true, what's more to fear? Chase. The Dark One speaks directly. Immediately, the Dark One and the Stopper, leading a group of Supremes, chased down the ancient road. Behind him, the Great Jumper followed Dark Li Fan with a gloomy look. In the dark, Li Fan ignored him at all, but walked and admired the scenery. "Why does this road smell so dirty?" Suddenly, Dark Li Fan frowned and waved his hand. Suddenly, this scene appeared. A big black dog marches forward with a gun drawn, swarming all over the ancient road. Seeing this scene, the big black dog that followed him was helpless at this moment. "This, social death. You are a real dog." Dark Li Fan said something, rather disgusted, and said, "You go first and clear the road." The big black dog's eyes widened when he heard this. "Let it toe the road." The big black dog said humbly, "Master, can you stop playing like this?" Dark Li Fan said, "Are you a dog or am I a dog? Huh? Are you discussing with me?" Hearing the words, the big black dog lowered his head and gritted his teeth, then silently stepped forward. Its body became very large, like a giant beast, covering the entire ancient road, and dragged it along the ancient road like a mop. "Let's go." A smile appeared in Li Fan's dark eyes, and then he moved forward. The dancing master followed him with a numb face. And at this moment, "My relatives and friends betrayed me, and I entered the darkest realm." On the peak of the Dread Beast Mountain Forest, the silent man was sitting under a dead old pine tree, still telling his story with a very calm voice, saying, "The darkest realm is actually very peaceful and safe. Outside of the cold laws of the universe, there is nothing. But there is nothing. An empty space, coupled with a very long period of time, becomes torture for people." Following his words, Yun 11 suddenly felt that the rules of time around him seemed to be half distorted. This distortion has been spreading along this place, directly reaching the extremely distant dome of darkness, affecting the pitch-black darkest realm. This. Yun 11 was surprised and said, you have changed the flow rate of time. The flow rate of time in the dark realm will be 100 million times that of the outside world. She had practiced the art of time and space and had a deep knowledge of it, so she was now able to keenly detect the time difference between the outside world and that area. The Lonely One said, "Good. I have kept this story for 30,000 years, but for him, 30,000 years is just a snap of a finger. 3 trillion years may be enough, or it may not be enough. If it is not enough, then speed up the time and space over there." Yun-11's pretty face showed a hint of deep worry and said, "You want him to be alone in that space and time, for 3 trillion years. 3 trillion years. Even though there is a supreme being who claims to be immortal, life is still limited. A person who can live for 1 billion years is already as high as heaven. But now Li Fan has to wait alone in that space and time for 3 trillion years. It may even take longer. If time is also a kind of punishment, then, what a severe torture this must be. We might as well take a look at what he's seeing." The Lonely One smiled and waved. A curtain of light appeared. It was a scene. On a forbidden ancient road, a group of Li Fan's disciples, Yongzi, Xining, etc. were fighting against the gray fog. The picture goes back through the years, and then there are pictures of them passing through the 10 source tribes with the 10 mental illnesses. This. Yongzi was surprised. As time goes by, he will begin to miss the people he cares about most, those who give him joy and warmth. The Silent One opened his mouth and said, "Before he completely forgets everything, I will let him see again the people he cares about most and the trajectory of his life. He will have an eye that will take him to see you, to see those disciples who paint and play the piano, walking from the Xiantian realm to the forbidden world. This is the final gift." Yun-11 understood. Through some means, Jizhe allowed Li Fan to look back through the years step by step and see the life scenes of Nanfeng, Ziling, and others. She didn't know how the Silent One did it. Li Fan had been imprisoned in the dark realm, so how could he still see these long-gone time and space scenes? But she knew that Jizhe must have done it. At this moment, Li Fan must have seen the lives of his disciples in the endless darkness. "He will miss us," she murmured. "Yes, I think about it so much that I go crazy." The voice of the Silent One was so calm, saying, "The more realistic and detailed the pictures he sees now, the more intense his thoughts for you are. The more painful it will be when the butcher's knife of time cuts into his body. Forgetting this matter will make it so difficult to accept." Hearing this, Yongzi understood. The Silent One does this just to torture Li Fan. He wanted Li Fan to be able to see with his own eyes the trajectory of the life of the people he cared about in the early stages of entering the dark realm. The stronger the emotion in his heart, the more painful the knife of 3 trillion years will be for him. Seeking but not getting, thinking but not seeing, the endless river of time that cannot be penetrated, the endless dark realm. Li Fan will suffer the crime of loneliness and the punishment of forgetfulness. When he finally forgets everything in the long river of time, will he feel silence in his heart? Yun-11's heart suddenly seemed to be squeezed tightly. She felt deeply distressed. "Good night. I have been very busy these days. Midu has not paid me the manuscript fee for April. It has been a long time since I started generating electricity for love. Having no money really affects my status. During this period of time, I was defending the rights of Midu authors and writing manuscripts at the same time. It was very uncomfortable. If it didn't work later, I would probably have to stop updating for a while and sue the website. Hope everything goes well. Alas, life is so difficult. Good night." Fantasy, I'm really not an unparalleled expert. Author, Gui Xin. Chapter 1221. The Shrine of Sacrifice. People from the small mountain village used to come here often, and a man named Ning Tianji was beaten badly. Ao Xuanhuan had already arrived at the original Chaos Ancestral Realm and the World's Sacrifice continent. While running, he introduced to the master what had happened in the Chaos Ancestral Realm. At that time, 12 evil corpses were born one after another. Ning Tianji of the World's Sacrifice Temple was beaten every time he intervened. It is still a legend in the Chaos Ancestral world. Well, those Supremes are chasing after them. If you don't want to turn into Ao Shi's Hung, you have to be faster. In the Dao Jingdi, the master of dancing spoke calmly. Hearing this, Ao Xuanhuan suddenly became anxious and said, "You're a great dancer, you're hurting me." Master Tiao smiled and said, "Think about where Xiaoshan village has been before, the place where Xiaoshan village has been will be safer." Ao Xuanhuan said angrily, "I don't know where the small mountain village has been. I haven't seen that small mountain village since I came to the Chaos Ancestral Realm. It's too late for me to escape." The dancing master said slowly, "I don't know." "Then wait for death. If you can be killed by so many Supremes, you deserve to die." Ao Xuanhuan. He felt that this great dancer was simply a bloody pit. However, he was also anxious, his mind was racing and thinking. After entering the ancestral realm of chaos from the Yang realm, he met people from the small mountain village several times, but he never saw the small mountain village directly again. Wherever a small mountain village is, there will always be evil spirits, and in those few years, the most evil person in the chaos ancestral realm, Wuhuang territory. Wuhuang territory, once one of the 4 territories and 8 desolations. Ao Xuanhuan vaguely remembered that the originally peaceful ancestral realm of chaos was disrupted. It started from Wuhuang domain. He immediately headed towards Wuhuang territory quickly. Entering the Wuhuang realm, everything in the Wuhuang realm was the same as before, except that the cultivation of the creatures on the earth was no longer what it used to be. Since the beginning of the world, the forbidden ancient road has been planted with white mist grass, the source of white mist has emerged, and the great road of reincarnation has filled the entire world. It is like entering the golden age. The cultivators have grown very fast and geniuses have spewed out. In addition to the high-level experts who entered the Wild Sky Alliance and participated in the Grey Mist Continent War, there were also many seeds of cultivators in the Chaos Ancestral Realm and the 4 realms and 8 wastelands. Ao Xuanhuan followed the traces of the past, and finally he appeared in front of a vast wilderness. Dead Man's Wasteland, that small mountain village was probably here back then. Ao Xuanhuan's eyes became determined. And in his Taoist scenery, the dancing master also smiled slightly and said, "I think it's probably there too. Go in." Ao Xuanhuan immediately went deep into the desert of the dead. He passed by the Oath-Keeping Valley where the Wuxiacan tribe once lived. In the Oath-Keeping Valley, there are still people of the Oath-Keeping lineage. Today, it has become a Taoist holy land, with thousands of young cultivators, full of vitality, flourishing, practicing. This scene made Ao Xuanhuan feel like he was in another world. The forbidden world has long been dark, but here people can find a remaining hope. However, he did not stay too long in the Oath-Keeping Valley, but continued to move forward. "Hey, there's something strange about the forest in front of us." Walking into a wild mountain forest, Ao Xuanhuan suddenly discovered that there was an open space in front of him. The clearing sunken downwards, looking like a large shallow pit. The size of the large pit seems to be just enough to accommodate a small mountain village. Moreover, above the big pit, there are still some old traces, scattered bricks, dust, and even some growing grass, all of which seem to be carrying the aura of taboo. That small mountain village once stayed here. Ao Xuanhuan is sure. He was quite familiar with that small mountain village. Judging from the chi machine on site, the remaining bricks, tiles, grass, etc. should be left behind when the small mountain village flew away. "Young master, is it safe here? How long can I stay?" Ao Xuanhuan spoke doubtfully. The one who danced the great god said. Did you see, this is a pit. What is the pit used for? It's used to trap people. He stood up and said. Come on, follow this sketch and lay out this square array. A piece of paper made of divine power floated out from the Dao scenery and landed in front of Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan looked at it carefully and said. What do you want me to do? He was a little uneasy. The dancing master smiled playfully and said. Kill Supreme. Hearing this, Xuanhuan jumped up in fright, killing Wushang? You are the number one pitfall in the world. None of the huge pits left in small mountain villages are pitted by you. Xuanhuan couldn't help it anymore. What state was he in? How could he deal with the Supreme? This great jumper is pushing himself into the fire pit. You're wrong. I said that when it comes to deceiving people, that bitch is an expert. I'm sorry for myself, I'm sorry for myself. He had a look of emotion on his face, and then said. Act quickly, those Supremes dare not directly enter the Chaos Ancestral Realm for a while, you still have time. And at this moment, at the junction of the original Grey Mist Sea and the Ancestral Realm of Chaos, here was once the abyss left by the end of 10,000 paths. The Dark One, the Still One, and a group of Supremes all stop here. Their speed was very fast. In an instant, they had walked through the forbidden ancient road, crossed the sea of white mist, and reached the edge of the ancestral realm of chaos. However, they dare not go any further. 4 realms and 8 wastelands actually formed this word. A supreme whisper said. What a big gesture. This place is related to that person. I'm afraid it's inappropriate to enter it rashly. Yes, just in case it's the backup he left behind. A group of Supremes were all hesitant. They are supreme and can see all the worlds. At a glance, they have already discovered how terrifying the world in front of them is. The 4 realms and 8 wastelands, as well as the ancestral realm of chaos at the center, constitute a ordinary character. This kind of place, even to the supreme, is like a forbidden area, and one is not willing to set foot. Are you just going to allow the 3 souls and 7 souls of the great god to escape? They hesitated. But no one wants to move forward. Why don't you leave? At this time, a faint smile suddenly came from behind. I saw Li Fan in the dark and the dancing master already approaching. The big black dog followed lazily and listlessly, while Nanfang, Ziling, and others were indifferent and numb. This place does have some tricks. At this time, the Dark Master also spoke solemnly and said. This is someone who used his status to promote changes in the world. There are only a few people in the world who can use his name to act. Dark Li Fan smiled and said. It doesn't matter, it's all over. This word is not used to deal with you. You don't have to be afraid. Besides, he himself has been imprisoned in the Dark Realm, and his connection with the outside world has been cut off. He can't hurt you here. However, a group of Supremes still looked at each other in confusion. In my heart, I'm still afraid. No matter what Dark Li Fan said. Don't believe it? If you don't believe me, I'll show you. Dark Li Fan smiled and walked directly to the Chaos Ancestral Realm. The Dark Dance Master looked gloomy, thought for a moment, and then followed. They've all gone, it should be fine. Let's go, we were too careful. Other Supremes followed immediately. Just entered the Ancestral Realm of Chaos. Hey, what kind of chi machine is that? Supreme. At this time, someone had already sensed the supreme energy coming from a certain direction. The energy of life is lingering around. That is the evolution of the no-injury way. Those who jump to the great gods, use this way to heal their wounds. Someone suddenly exclaimed. Take his life now. Kill him quickly. A group of Supremes were all roaring as they displayed their supreme way. Soon, they had left the Chaos Ancestral Realm and appeared outside the Wuhuang Realm. He is in this world. This world seems a little weird, we are not very good at detecting it. The Master Jumper is hidden inside, let's go in quickly and kill him together. Everyone spoke one after another. However, no one is willing to take the initiative to kill them. A group of supreme beings, you look at me, I look at you, all waiting. After all, the great god of Tiao is so powerful that he knows all the supreme ways. If you fight back before death, you will probably take away some supreme. Whoever rushes in front will be under the greatest pressure. Let's see, Brother Duhuo, you are the fastest. Go and see if the Master Jumper still has the strength to fight back. You can leave immediately. How about that? The stopper looks towards Duhuo. Yes, Brother Duhuo, this is the best opportunity. He must be seriously injured now. As long as his healing process is interrupted, he will have no power to resist. Yes, take him down, and you will become the #1 hero of the Dark Dome. Besides, by devouring his 3 souls and 7 souls, you might even have a chance to walk out of ignorance. The other Supremes also spoke one after another. But Du Huo panicked and said, I'm not an unjust one. I master the way of distance, but the one who dances like a master can also, who dares to say that he can't catch up with me? Unless, one more person comes with me. He looked at Zhizhe and said, Fellow Daoists He, how about you come with me? My distance-free path can bring one more supreme leader. He is most at ease with those who stop. At that time, if Tiao Dashan is really difficult to deal with, Zhezhe's Wudong can also stop Tiao Dashan, and he can escape. Hearing this, Zhizhe was startled for a moment. Hey, how did this disaster happen to me? However, many Supremes were staring at him at the moment, so he had no choice but to grit his teeth and say, Okay, let's take a walk. My master is invincible. If something really happened, my master would already know about it. He still has some confidence, after all, the Silent One knows everything and can reach everything. Immediately, he and Du Huo disappeared from the place together. Now, amidst the dead. It's finally done. This is exactly the same as the small mountain village before. Ao Wushuan has already set up the formation according to what Master Tiao said. After the formation was deployed, the shadow of the small mountain village was actually reflected in the empty space left behind when the original small mountain village flew away. It seemed like it had been summoned from the ages, and it looked no different from the small mountain villages he had seen. Let's go into the village quickly. Master Tiao opened his mouth and said, I just called Wushang over. Hearing this, Ao Wushuan suddenly became extremely nervous and said, Young master, can you say hello first before you trick someone next time? Without hesitation, he jumped directly into the small mountain village. After entering the small mountain village, he discovered that this small mountain village was not real, it was just a shadow of the past. He vaguely saw that at the entrance of the village, there seemed to be an old man basking in the sun, and in the field, there seemed to be a farmer plowing the land. He has some impressions of these two people. It seems that one is called Second Uncle and the other is called Uncle John. But at this moment, Master Tiao suddenly took action, and the shadow of the entire small mountain village disappeared. There was still only an empty space left at the scene. Ao Wushuan suddenly raised his eyes and saw 2 dark creatures in front of him. One of them, wearing a black robe, looked very old, but his beard and hair were still black. Around him, all the rules of space seemed to have failed. There was another person in his realm, a middle-aged man. When he appeared, it seemed as if everything in the world would come to a standstill. Who are you? Ao Wu's eyes were a little frightened. When he saw him, Zhizhe's eyes suddenly frowned and said, Eldest brother. He has already recognized, this Ao Wushuan, and their former senior brother, the senior disciple of Zhe. The lonely ones are exactly the same. I understand, you colluded with Tiao Dashan. It was you who helped Tiao Dashan steal Master's Dark Rose, Dark Fire, and Heart Ape. Zhi's eyes suddenly showed a cold look. Lonely, traitor. There is no longer any comradeship. That's fine, both the master dancer and you should die, once and for all. He shouted in a low voice. And after saying that, at this moment, everything in the entire dead desert seemed to be stagnant. The path of inaction has already been punished. Xuanhuan stood in the open space, as if he had turned into a zombie, unable to move. Where is the heart monkey, and where are Master's roses and fire? He shouted with words that captured the soul. The supreme chi machine, which suppressed Xuanhuan's Dao scenery, was released independently. Both Zhi and Duhuo immediately saw that in that scene, it was actually pitch black, and in it, Xuanhuan was tied up and could not move. Next to him, Tiao De Shen was panting, the soul is almost dissipated and is on the verge of collapse. The one who danced the great god, is indeed you. When the enemy met, he was extremely jealous. At this moment, Zhi couldn't help it. His Wudong Wei invaded Xuanhuan's Tao scenery. In Xuanhuan's Tao scenery, Tiao Dashan tried his best to evolve into something. Dao, resisting without moving, but his soul shook for a while, as if it was about to split, but he failed. Then, he was also controlled by Wudong. Sure enough, the one on the dark throne is right, you only have your soul left to inspire the supreme way, and the loss will be huge. Young master, today, I will make you taste all the tortures in the world, and then I will make you a black slave. Zhi's eyes showed an unprecedented ecstasy. Then, he walked over and entered the open space. But, that is at this moment. Wrong. He suddenly discovered something. There were layers of light and shadow appearing around him. It was like entering a small mountain village. At the entrance of the village, among the light and shadow, there seemed to be an old man sitting and basking in the sun. When he saw him, he suddenly raised his crutch and pointed it over. A surge of supreme power came with a bang. Dark Ancestor. The stopper spoke in shock. He hurriedly retreated, his own Tao of immobility reaching its limit, but he found that in the light and shadow of this small mountain village, his Tao was completely useless. Scammed. You're a big bastard, you're such a swindle. You're cheating on me. Zhi cursed angrily and turned around to run away. However, the old man tilling the land had already slapped him with a whip. No. The stopper let out a shrill scream. And at this moment, forbidden Jizhu, Kaiwenzo, fearful beasts in the mountains and forests. It was pitch black and thick with fog. In a small mountain village, it is like a paradise, completely unaffected by the gloom of the outside world. The villagers are having a banquet. In the open space, they have already started eating on the running water mat. There is a bonfire nearby, roasting various meats. Changing cups and cups, you come and go, ordinary life is full of excitement. Uncle Zhao, who was drinking with Uncle Zhang, suddenly said. Someone is using my hand to fight. Uncle Zhang also put down his cup and said thoughtfully. This person must be very familiar with us, a master dancer. Is this old liar and cheater really alive? Good night.